Extended version of In the Desert of Set main title in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to In the Desert of Set, a pagan and occult website by G.B. Marion. I'm G.B. Marion. I write about life as a polytheist in contemporary times, with random, long-winded detours into ancient history, classic horror movies, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Won't you join me for today's adventure? If you'd like to read a free electronic print copy of the following recording, please visit desertofset.com. Nephthys, the Dark Midwife. Even more than Ishtar or Taweret, Nephthys is the goddess who is most often linked with Set. In fact, some people might be wondering why it's taken me 40 whole episodes before I finally got around to discussing her. Truth is, I wanted to highlight the aforementioned goddesses first, because their interactions with Set are far less known. I also think Set and Nephthys share a much more complex relationship than what is typically imagined about god and goddess couples, for reasons I shall explain. The name of this goddess, which comes from the Egyptian Nebet Het, means Lady of the House. It refers to a temple enclosure rather than a domestic residence. In the Heliopolitan cosmogony, Nephthys is one of the fourth generation of Neteru, the others being Osiris, Isis, Set, and even Horus in some accounts. As such, Nephthys is one of the divinities who facilitate life here on Earth and who contributes to the arts of human civilization. The fourth generation of gods was somewhat disruptive to the natural order of things at first. There is even a story about Ra, the first Neter, prohibiting their granddaughter, the sky goddess Nut, from giving birth to these young'uns, despite already being pregnant. Thankfully, the wise god Thoth finds a technicality that allows Nut to have her children while still technically obeying Ra's decree. So first it was just Ra, and all things were united in them. Then Ra begat Shu and Tefnut, the breath and the waters of life, who are the first male and female. After that, Shu and Tefnut begat another male and female, Nut and Jeb, the deities of heaven and earth. While Ra himself is hermaphroditic, the second and third theological generations are dichotomous, falling into a strict gender binary that is strongly tied to the reproductive cycle. Reproduction becomes a major theme for the fourth generation of Neteru as well, but in a radically different way. For one thing, there are not just two deities in this generation, but at least four, if not five, depending on whether you choose to include Horus, but more on that in just a moment. Only two of these figures, Isis and Osiris, are a fertile heteronormative couple, and they become the darlings of the pantheon for this reason. Set and Nephthys are sterile and barren, incapable of producing any children. Set is also attracted to gods of the same sex, and there is reason to think the same might be true of Nephthys. While Isis and Osiris are like celebrities, receiving all the glory and the privilege from their elders, everybody tries to forget about Set and Nephthys in the beginning, pairing them together and leaving them to fend for themselves. The way I see it, this treatment is what sets the entire Osirian drama into motion. More than anything, Nephthys, sometimes described as an imitation woman with no vagina, wants to have a child. She wants to experience all the same parts of womanhood that Isis enjoys. So she disguises herself as Isis and sleeps with Osiris, who is so miraculously fertile he could even impregnate a corpse. Nephthys then gives birth to Anubis, the jackal god, and tries to hide him so Set won't find out what happened. But Set learns the truth and loses his temper big time. Instead of trying to harm Nephthys or Anubis, however, he squashes Osiris instead. Twice, in fact. Then Isis goes on her journey to raise Osiris from the dead. She succeeds, sleeps with her brother-husband one last time before he goes to Duat, and becomes pregnant with Horus. This is where the question of when Horus is born comes up again. I prefer to place it here at this point in the narrative as it makes the most thematic sense to me personally. But there are other versions of the same narrative that cite Nut as the mother of Horus. Just one more example of how the ancient Egyptians were way ahead of quantum physicists or science fiction writers when it comes to the idea of alternate universes. Nephthys dutifully accompanies Isis through all of this insanity, helping her sister every step of the way. This is especially the case when it comes to the funeral of Osiris, and here is where Nephthys' innermost drive becomes most evident. She and her son Anubis help Isis reconstruct the body of Osiris and restore him to life. Through much of this process, Nephthys weeps and wails and whimpers with Isis, empathizing with the widowed goddess and sharing in her profound sorrow. The Egyptians prayed to Nephthys as a kind of dark midwife, you might say, a divine grief counselor who assists those in terrible emotional anguish, helping them heal and feel better over time. This fits together with the role of Anubis, who invents the funerary arts and becomes the first mortician. Nobody enjoys experiencing death or loss, but they are facts of life, and those of us who survive must find a way to live again. To think that Nephthys and Anubis have always been there to nurture things that help us cope with such experiences, such as counseling or mortuary science, makes my heart glow like a jack-o'-lantern. Nephthys sides with the Osirian trinity during the contendings of Horus and Set, and she sticks with them for the most part after the Great Reconciliation. She continues associating with Big Red when it comes to fighting the Chaos Serpent, and she appears to have been revered as a powerful fire-breathing warrior in this regard. But the one member of the divine family Nephthys truly seems to have fallen in love with is Isis. To make things even more interesting, other cosmogonies have cited Set as being Anubis' father. The two are often linked, or even outright confused with each other, even today. None of what I say next should be treated as any kind of official religious dogma. This is just what I personally take from these wonderful stories, and you can either take it or leave it. But I think Nephthys is a lesbian goddess. I think she and Set still love each other. They have just always loved each other as brother and sister for the most part. They are divorced, but for good reason. They were never very attracted to each other in the first place. Isis and Osiris are married because they love each other. Set and Nephthys were paired together as an afterthought to make the rest of the pantheon happy. This refusal to properly integrate the forms of life and being that Set and Nephthys represent is what almost caused the downfall of creation, and the apocalypse was only averted when the Neteru got wise as a society and changed their ways. Now these two outcasts are truly accepted by their family as equals, and Set has even grown to love Anubis and become his stepdad. This trinity of Set, Nephthys, and Anubis is truly remarkable for many reasons. A divorced pansexual gender-bending dad, a barren lesbian spinster mom, and a so-called illegitimate stepchild born of adultery? What isn't there to love about this, or the fact that these figures were considered acceptable and divine in ancient Egyptian culture? The Western patriarchal concept of the so-called nuclear family, which insists that all families must consist of two heteronormative cisgender adults with 2.3 biological offspring born in wedlock, is not only a more recent invention in the grand scheme of things, but a blatant work of Isfet, or poisonous falsehood and injustice, that contradicts Ma'at, or everlasting goodness and truth. There is a place for every sentient being in this world, and for the sentient beings they love too. It simply does not matter whether we are male or female, gay or straight, trans or cisgender, married or unmarried, monogamous or non-monogamous, biologically related or adopted, and it never has. Other religions need to hurry the fuck up and get wise to this already. Set, Nephthys, and Anubis were already on top of this, well ahead of Yahweh and Jesus, and things still don't look so good for those two on this score today. Plus, Set, Nephthys, and Anubis are all goth as hell, like they're the original Addams family, and that is just so cool. If there is any one divinity I associate with Hallowtide in particular, which is no easy task given the sheer quantity of gods who align with that occasion perfectly, Nephthys is the one. My wife and I enjoy visiting cemeteries all around our state in October and November, and to me this is a way of honoring Nephthys throughout the holiday season. Just to walk among the graves and admire the craftsmanship of the headstones and the tombs, to see all the ancient iconography that still shows up, even among the newer statuary, to soak in the names of the ancestors who rest there and the times in which they lived, to be alone in the eerie silence. Even if you don't believe in ghosts, there is just something about visiting such places for a couple of hours that has an effect on you. Most people seem to find the idea spooky, but I find it very peaceful and meditative, helping me achieve a level of mindfulness I usually can't reach otherwise. To me, this kind of mindfulness is a huge part of what Lady Nephthys is all about. Unless she be accused of never being colorful, Nephthys is also the guardian of the Bennu. This avian divinity was associated with heron birds and the solar cycle in Heliopolis. The Greek writer Herodotus described it as the phoenix, which is a possible Greek derivative of the word Bennu, and which later developed into the archetypal bird of fire that ritually burns and rises from its own ashes. These more modern associations are fascinating when put together with Nephthys' reputation as a healer of wounded minds and hearts, as well as her role as a fiery monster slayer. Though it is really about Russian folklore, I enjoy listening to Igor Stravinsky's The Firebird each year at Hallowtide because I find the titular creature analogous to that of the Bennu, and phoenix symbolism is very evocative of Nephthys to me personally. Sweet Nephthys, Lady of all hallowed grounds, daughter of night, sister of storm, mother of all last rites, look favorably upon us, O Queen of lonely places. Uplift us with your empathy, anoint us with your tears. Help the phoenix in every mortal coil rise again from gray ashes. Dua nebet het. Praise be to Nephthys. So do we pray. So mote it be. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this sermon and you'd like to read some more, please check out desertofset.com. I hope you have a wonderful day. Set bless.